Hello my dear students, welcome back to our English lesson. I am your English teacher, Айназик Исламбекова. What is a relative clause? A relative clause is one kind of dependent clause. It has a subject and verb, but can stand alone as a sentence. It is sometimes called an adjective clause because it functions like an adjective. It gives more information about a noun. We can use relative clauses to join two English sentences or to give more information about something. For example, I bought a new car that is very fast. Or she lives in New York. She likes living in New York. And she lives in New York, which she likes. Defining and not defining. A defining relative clause identifies who or what we are speaking about, whereas a non-defining relative clause just gives us more information about who or what we are speaking about. For example, I like the woman who lives next door. If I don't say who lives next door, then we don't know which woman I mean. A non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about something. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. For example, I live in London, which has some fantastic parks. Everybody knows where London is, so which has some fantastic parks is extra information. A non-defining relative clause tells which noun we are talking about. A non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about something. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. A non-defining relative clause is separated from the main part of the sentence by commas. A defining relative clause tells us which noun we are talking about. For example, I like woman who lives next door. If I don't say who lives next door, then we don't know which woman I mean. A non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about something. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. I live in London, which has some fantastic parks. Everybody knows where London is, so which has some fantastic parks is extra information. Now, let's watch a video related to relative clauses.
Non-defining relative clauses give extra information and use commas. His wife is an actress. She has blue eyes. His wife, whose eyes are blue, is an actress. They work in Hollywood. It is part of Los Angeles. Hollywood, where they work, is a part of Los Angeles. Defining relative clauses give necessary information. No commas. Hollywood is the place where they celebrate the Oscars. February is the month when they celebrate the Oscars. She is the actress who won the Oscar. He is the director whose film won the Oscar. And this is the Oscar that Brad didn't win. Ha ha ha!
As the name suggests, defining relative clauses give essential information to define or identify the person or thing we are talking about. Defining relative clauses are composed of a relative pronoun, something omitted, a verb, and optional other elements such as the subject or object of the verb. Defining relative clauses. The relative pronoun is the subject. First, let's consider when the relative pronoun is the subject of a defining relative clause. We can use who, which, or that. We use who for people and which for things, and also we use whose that refers to people and things, and that refers to people and things. The relative clause can come after the subject or the object of the sentence. We can't drop the relative pronoun. Let's read some examples of clause after the object of the sentence. I am looking for a secretary who, or we can say that, can use a computer well. Or she has a son who, or we can use that, is a doctor. We bought a house which, or we can say that, is 200 years old. And I sent a letter which, or that, arrived 3 weeks later. The relative pronoun is the object. A relative pronoun is used to connect a clause or phrase to a noun or pronoun. The clause modifies or describes the noun. The most common relative pronouns are who, whom, whose, which, and that. Next, let's talk about when the relative pronoun is the object of the clause. In this case, we can drop the relative pronoun if we want to. Again, the clause can come after the subject or the object of the sentence. Here are some examples. Clause after the object. She loves the chocolate, which or that I bought. We went to the village, which or that Lucy recommended. And clause after the subject. The bike, which or that I loved, was stolen. The university, which or that she likes, is famous. We don't use that in non-defining relative clauses, so we need to use which if the pronoun refers to a thing and who if it refers to a person. We can't drop the relative pronoun in this kind of clause, even if the relative pronoun is the subject of the clause. Here are some examples. Clause comes after the subject. My boss, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. Or my sister, whom I live with, knows a lot about cars. Examples of clause comes after the object. Yesterday I called out friend Julie, who lives in New York. And the photographer called to the queen, who looked annoyed. And if the verb in the relative clause needs a preposition, we put it at the end of the clause. For example, listen to. The music is good. Julie listens to the music. The music which or that Julie listens to is good. Or let's read example with work with. My brother met a woman. I used to work with the woman. My brother met a woman who, or we can say that, I used to work with. Whose is always the subject of the relative clause and can't be left out. It replaces a possessive. It can be used for people and things. For example, the dog is over there. The dog's, its owner lives next door. The dog's, or we can say its owner, lives next door. And the full sentence with whose will sound like the dog whose owner lives next door is over there. The little girl is sad. The little girl's, or we can say her, doll was lost. And the full sentence with whose will sound like the little girl whose doll was lost is sad. When and why? We can sometimes use these question words instead of relative pronouns and prepositions. For example, I live in the city. I study in the city. And the full sentence with question word will sound like I live in the city where I study. The bar in Barcelona is still there. I met my wife in that bar. And a full sentence with the question word will sound like the bar in Barcelona where I met my wife is still there. The summer was long and hot. I graduated from university in the And lastly, the full sentence with question word will sound like the summer when I graduated from university was long and hot. And now, children, it's time to have a practice. Are you ready? Let's go. Here we have to complete the sentences with the relative pronouns from the box. Time is up. Have you finished? Let's check and compare your answers all together. So the first one will be: the new movie is about a boy who has lost his parents in a car accident. And the second one: he is the young man whose wife left him for someone else. And the next one: the DVD recorder which I bought at the store a few days ago is not working. And the next one: that's the book that, or we can see which, I recommended reading in a class. And the next one: is this the hotel where you are staying for the tournament? And the last one: my dad, who travels a lot on business, is in Australia at the moment. And here, children, you have to choose the correct relative pronoun. I'm also going to give you some time. Let's go. Time is up. Have you finished? Let's compare your answers. So the first sentence, the dog who's barking you can hear is our neighbor's dog. And the right answer here is C, whose. And the second one, this is the purse that I am looking for. And the right answer here is B. And the third one, here the right answer is A. Could you tell me the name of the boy that is sitting opposite us? And the last one, the right answer here is who. My mother, who worked as a nurse, is retired now. Good job. Let's move to the next task. And here, children, you have to use that, who, which, or whose to complete the given sentences. Write commas where necessary. Have you finished? Let's check and compare your answers. And the first one will be Miss Anderson, whose reputation is so good, comes to help us. And the second one, what have you done with the pen which, or we can say that, I left on the table? And the third one, I delivered the parcel to Charles, who gave it to Anne. And the last one, his wife, who is an architect, designed their new house. Good job. And let's do the last one. Here you have to combine the two sentences to one using a relative pronoun. I'm also going to give you some time for this task. Let's go. Time is up. Have you finished? Let's check and compare your answers all together. The first sentence, that is the man. I spoke to him the other day. And the full sentence with relative pronoun will sound like, that is the man who, or we can say whom, I spoke to the other day. And the second one, they elected a new mayor. His aim is to help the poor. They elected a new mayor whose aim is to help the poor. And the third one, I really like the car. I bought it last year. I really like the car that, or we can say which, I bought last year. Mr. Black took over the company. His wife died last year. Mr. Black, whose wife died last year, took over the company. And the last one. The restaurant is the best in town. We usually eat there. The restaurant where we usually eat is the best in town. Good job. So this was our last exercise. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.